Yeah, after a week we finally got it, guys. Great to be back.
3 days of darkness. This clears it up pretty well. This is on from a Catholic.com. That's important because this is actually a Catholic prophecy. It's not been anywhere found in the Bible besides in the Exodus.
Hang on.
Revelation, as well as other references in the Second Thessalonians. There are prophecies about darkness coming upon the earth. The sun turned black, or the moon turned blood, or the sun turned black sackcloth. Nowhere is there a reference of days of darkness, 3 days of darkness, or anything like this. So we'll read through a little bit of this to actually get the understanding of the origin of the 3 days of darkness. So in certain Catholic circles, prophetic circles, it's gone on and been spread around for a long time that there will be 3 days of darkness. One of the most famous quotations about this event is attributed to the Italian mystic Anna Maria Taggi, and she is said to have said this: "There shall come a time, there shall come over the whole earth an intense darkness lasting 3 days and 3 nights.
Okay, that's the best I can
It will
do.
be laden with pestilence, which will claim many, but not only the enemies of religion. It will be impossible to use any man-made lighting during this time, except blessed candles. He who out of curiosity opens his window to look out, or leaves his home, will fall dead on the spot. During these 3 days, people should remain in their homes, pray the rosary, and beg God for mercy." Are the 3 days of darkness coming in 2025? Well, according to this video that we'll look at, it says that it is. It says why the 3 days of darkness is coming in 2025. One of the references that it brings up is the parallel between what happened in the Exodus story with the 3 days of darkness that happened in Egypt. This is the only account in the Bible that we have of a reference to 3
Hey
days.
Phil, hi Di. Great to be back, guys.
It's not referenced
My
in the
health's
Bible.
back to
We don't know
normal.
exactly where it
Little
comes
bit
from.
sore though.
After we
Good to
watch
see
the
you guys,
video,
really is.
just to reference where it actually is mentioned in the Bible is in Exodus 10:21 through 29. The 3 days of darkness was part of the 10 plagues that God sent upon Israel to release the Israelites from slavery. During these 3 days, an impenetrable darkness covered the land of Egypt, and it was a darkness so dense that it could be felt. So again, the title of this video is why the 3 days of darkness is coming in 2025. Now, I don't know if these channels are actually run by Christians. Sad to say, one of the terrible things that we've seen increase in recent times is the AI Christian channels that are on YouTube. I mean, they're not just Christian, but what's terrible to see really is the AI Christian channels, because many of them are not even teaching the Word of God or trying to teach the biblical truths. They're just finding anything that they believe will get clicks, and then like this video here, a 13-minute.
Okay, next time I stream, I'm going to shrink the screen, but we can see most of the screen.
Video that gives us no information of the origin of the 3 days of prophecy, the 3 days of darkness
Yeah, guys, you remember 2 months ago I went in the hospital because my belly swelled up? So that was one time in hospital. Then I had an esophagus tear, and I was in hospital for a week then. I've been through the ringer. Gee, I'm tired. I busted my tablet on the way home. This has been a really bad year for me.
Prophecy, no origin of the biblical prophecy, not a single reference to actually how the 3 days of darkness is coming in 2025, as the title suggests. But it just goes on, and it's just a video made to get clicks, which is sad to see. And we can also see it when we look on their channel and just type 3 for the 3 days of darkness and see how many times they've claimed this. Padre Pio received this message from Jesus Christ right before he died. Don't go outside on March 29th, 2025. That is a reference to the 3 days of darkness, and one that is not historically backed, which we'll look into.
There is 3 days of darkness in the past in the Bible. That's why I played it. I didn't believe it at first, but it seems to be a true event.
In just a moment. And it continues to do this time and time again. And I've even seen, maybe not this channel, but channels like this come back out and then change the dates in their thumbnails and in their titles, so it doesn't look like they actually said that it was going to happen, because these channels say it's going to happen in 2024. And on January 1st, they make new thumbnails and new titles for 2025. So let's listen to the only reference in this video where they start to actually get into the prophecy of the 3 days of darkness.
Many believe that this biblical account isn't just a historical event, but a prophecy that will reveal itself in the end times. Some saints and mystics throughout history have spoken of a coming period of darkness that will engulf the world. So let me ask you this. Could we be on the brink of experiencing our own 3 days of darkness? It's a chilling thought, isn't it? But before we dismiss it, consider the parallels between our world today and the world of ancient Egypt. Are we not, in many ways, living in a time of spiritual darkness? Have we not, like the Egyptians, often put our trust in false gods? Money, power, technology? Look around you.
The truth is, behind closed doors, the P word became my secret sin at age 10.
The world seems to be growing darker in many ways, morally, spiritually, and even literally, with increasing natural disasters and strange weather phenomena.
Hey guys, did you see our Prime Minister endorsed a Palestinian state? What, everyone's spewing on him. The whole of Australia is spewing on him. He's the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. And he's going to be in power when the crap hits the fan. That's scary.
From political unrest to environmental crises, from moral decay to spiritual apathy, many see these as signs that we're approaching a critical moment in history. But let's dig a little deeper. What specific signs might indicate that we're heading towards a time of darkness? Some point to the increasing frequency and intensity of natural disasters.
So as we see, not a single reference to actually 3 days of darkness. That was the only time where they tried to get close to it, and then again they just drew the parallel between Egypt and the state of the world right now, and how Egypt obviously was living in very dark times following false gods. God gave them so many chances to release the Israelites and turn from their ways, but time and time again 10 plagues had to come upon them in order for them to be for the Israelites to be released. And then finally, well, they still chased after them anyway, and then they drowned in the Red Sea. So here is the actual information that we have on the 3 days of darkness, and this clears it up pretty well. This is from a Catholic website. It's actually from Catholic.com, but that's important because this is actually a Catholic prophecy. It's not, again, anywhere found in the Bible besides in the Exodus story. In the book of Revelation, as well as...
That's why I was suspicious of it. I knew it came from the Catholics.
Other references in like 2 Thessalonians, there are prophecies about darkness coming upon the earth. The sun turned black, or the moon turned to blood, or the sun turned black as sackcloth. But nowhere is there a reference of days of darkness, 3 days of darkness, or anything like this. So we'll read through a little bit of this to actually get the understanding of the origin of the 3 days of darkness. So in certain Catholic circles, prophetic circles, it's gone on and been spread around for a long time that there will be 3 days of darkness. One of the most famous quotations about this event is attributed to the Italian mystic Anna Maria Taggi, and she is said to have said this: there shall come over the whole earth an intense darkness lasting 3 days and 3 nights. Nothing can be seen, and the air will be laden with pestilence, which will claim many, but not only the enemies of religion. It will be impossible to use any man-made lighting during this time, except blessed candles. He who out of curiosity opens his window to look out or leaves his home will fall dead on the spot. During these 3 days, people should remain in their homes, pray the rosary, and beg God for mercy. All the enemies of the church, whether known or unknown, will perish over the whole earth during that universal darkness, with the exception of a few whom God will soon convert.
Thanks, Phil.
The air shall be infected by demons who will appear under...
I'll tell you what, Phil, if it wasn't for you guys, my life would be so boring. Every morning I look forward to what we're going to learn. I really do. It's a good crew hanging out with you guys. And we're just a little family that's very blessed.
All sorts of hideous forms. Now, I believe that prophecy is a gift that God gives to people. It's a spiritual gift that some people can have. I've had people prophetically speak into my life, and they definitely came to fruition, and these people are often very reverent towards God. And I guess that's the best way to explain them. But it is a gift that the Bible tells us is real, so people can get prophetic insights to things. But I don't believe that there's any prophecies happening around the world given to people that are given on a worldwide level. The Bible has very specific prophecies about the end times, and we pretty much have a timeline of events that will take place. And this massive amount of an event, like this event would be so huge, three darknesses covering the entire earth. Everyone who's not following the church, so a Christian or a Catholic will die, besides a few people who are praying in their house and God decides to save. That doesn't fit in anywhere with the prophetic timeline of what the Bible has to say. But we're told about the great falling away. We're not told about anything in relation to 3 days of darkness in which you need specific candles in your house and that man-made lighting won't work. When it starts to get into prophecies that like affect the entire world on a level like that, I'm very suspicious of whether that's a real prophecy or not. I think God would probably reference something this big in the Bible. So this says another mystic, Maria Julie Jahini, is said to have claimed that only 100% wax candles will work. This has led to people selling pure beeswax candles to Catholic households to use.
See, that's a problem, holy candles. That's a big problem.
During this event. So let's see, what should we make of the prediction? How credible is it? And what does the church have to say about it? So, of course, according to Catholics, everything has to be like verified by the Vatican or the Pope or something along these lines for it to even be considered to be real. So that's why they reference the church. It says here that the answer to the last question is easy. The church has said nothing about it. And a search of the Vatican website reveals no occurrences of the phrase 3 days of darkness. The 3 days of darkness is not a matter of church teaching. Can it be supported by the Bible? Websites advocating 3 days of darkness regularly appeal to the 9th plague of Exodus, in which God caused 3 days of darkness in Egypt. However, this is a reference to a historical event, not a prediction of a future one. An appeal is also made in Revelation 6:12 and 16:10 of the sixth seal and the fifth vial. These chapters in Revelation, most likely, according to them, pertain to events in early church history, not of our future. And although both passages invoke darkness, there's no mention of it lasting 3 days, similarly to 2 Thessalonians prophecy, and I believe also Matthew 24 or Luke 21 also references the sun turning dark. But this is right before the return of the Lord, the last trumpet. The sun turned to darkness, the moon turned to blood, and then the return of Jesus Christ. Consequently, the Bible does not contain a prediction of the 3 days of darkness. However, God could still reveal it through credible private revelations. It is here that we run into a problem. George Ryan, who passes no judgment on the 3 days of darkness, writes, the origins of the prophecy are unclear, but it has been attributed to a number of saints and mystics throughout history. Some believe it comes from Saint Hildegard of Bingen, while others attribute it to Saint Patrick or Saint Teresa of Avila. So the prophecy really doesn't even have any understanding of the origin. Again, we have the references that we already looked to, but another one to point out is that many people often attribute this prophecy to Padre Pio. But this says here, this clarifies it. Some advocates of the 3 days of darkness have claimed that Saint Pio of, Pietrelcina, Padre Pio predicted it. However, the quotation was given with no traceable source, and the Capuchin order that he belonged to has denied that he ever made such a prediction. This also appears to be a case of someone trying to lend the prediction credibility by associating it with a popular modern saint. So there's really no actual prophecy that relates to this whatsoever. There's a few of the saints, according to the Catholics and mystics in the past, that reference this. And here's another quote about in relation to Anna Maria Taggi, who is believed to be the first person who references this. There's no question that Anna Maria Taggi saw in her mystic sun several visions of clouds of darkness and other horrific disasters descending upon the earth during the times of punishment. This has been mentioned during her beatification process as seen above. However, the mention of a specific time frame of the 3 days of darkness for the foretold purge of the earth was first allegedly revealed by her spiritual director, Raphael Natali, who was not only her strongest supporter during her beatification process, but also gave ample testimony regarding her visions.
Hey, Wesley, welcome to the
And
channel.
everything. Natalie also revealed the following on August 1864, a year after her beatification process was opened. It is very true that the venerable servant of God announced the scourge of the 3 days of darkness spread all over the earth. In these circumstances, the windows should be closed and leaning over them should be avoided, and it will be imperative to pray the Holy Rosary and to pray. So again, we really have no understanding of, well, the most important point is that this prophecy is not mentioned anywhere in the Bible. These massive worldwide prophecies, do we even have any other reference of a private interpretation or a private prophecy given to someone who has the gift of prophecy in history that actually was foretelling a worldwide event? A lot of prophets or people who claim to be prophets these days try to claim that they have some of these revelations now on things. But when you
Hello,
look
Nolan.
history,
Welcome to the channel.
since the Bible was written up until now, has there ever been someone who was clearly a servant of God who gave a prophecy that related to a worldwide event, something literally on the scale of a Revelation, the book of Revelation prophecy, and then it actually happened? We haven't seen that. And again, I don't know if even God would even do that in the time that we're in. We have the end times timeline prophetically told to us through multiple books in the Bible.
Norman, we haven't investigated these 3 days of darkness, so I don't think any of us have actually got a stance on this yet. From what I'm seeing, it seems to be a Catholic dogma, and if it is, I don't like it.
When it comes to massive worldwide prophecies, to give it to another private interpretation for someone to just give now through writing or through a video or something like this.
Hi, Vas. Good to see you, bro.
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what to make of that. I don't really think that that's something that we can. It just doesn't make sense in comparison to history and how the rest of the prophecies have been revealed to us. So that's the truth about the 3 days of prophecy, the origins of it. This is probably
Okay. So we didn't get much whether it's true or not there. There's no scripture to back it up. So that's not good. Hang on. Did it load? There you go. Come on, jump up, come on.
Suggesting that even Jesus spoke of this coming hour, but not in plain sight, not for the crowds, only for those willing to listen beyond the surface, beyond comfort, beyond the safety of ordinary religion. This darkness is not just about physical night, it is a spiritual event. It mirrors the 9th plague in Egypt, when darkness covered the land, and foreshadows the end foretold in Revelation, when the sun and moon will withhold their light, and the heavens will tremble. It is a moment when God hides his face, and the world is left to see what it truly.
Vas, you watch some channels like That's Impossible as well. Have you seen all the cryptid creatures that are coming on now? They're just coming out of anywhere. They're not even hiding it. There's little demons and little this and that. Really crazy stuff.
He worships. What happens during those 3 days? What becomes of the proud, the careless, the unrepentant? And what of those who wait, who kneel, who watch in faith with blessed candles and hearts of prayer? This video is not for curiosity. It is a warning, a call to wake up before the silence falls. So I ask you if you've ever felt something stirring in your soul during the late hours of the night, if you've sensed that the world is teetering closer to a line no one wants to cross, then stay. Watch until the end, because in the final moments of this video, we will uncover the most overlooked truth about what Jesus may have said. Truth
Yeah,
hidden in
first
plain
link in
sight,
over a week,
yet
guys.
invisible to the distracted heart. And if you believe that revelation is not entertainment but preparation, then subscribe now to the Bible Seminar, where prophecy is not just studied, but lived. What you hear tonight may stay with you long after the screen fades to black. In the stillness of ancient convents, behind walls where the world could not reach, visions were recorded that would never reach the pulpit. In the pages of forgotten journals, in letters sent between saints, and in whispers passed during persecution, a strange message began to emerge, that a time would come when light would flee from the earth, and only those who carried divine fire would survive the terror that followed. Blessed Anna Maria Taigi, a mystic of the 19th century, spoke of 3 nights of pitch-black darkness, during which demons would be unleashed, killing those who dared to look outside or wandered in unbelief. She saw cities burning, screams rising from the earth, and angels descending only to mark the homes of the faithful. She was not alone. Padre Pio, a man venerated for his closeness to the invisible world, confirmed the warning, urging the faithful to prepare candles blessed by the church, windows sealed, voices lifted in unceasing prayer. But how can such a warning be real? How can a world plunged into
Darren Bell was watching one of my videos where Moo was crying, and he actually heard me go, "Oh man!" So he actually laughed at it, because this dog, I love it to death. It's super, super high maintenance, so.
darkness be more than metaphor? And why would God allow such terror to unfold on the earth? The answer lies not only in prophecy, but in pattern. For every judgment that fell in Scripture came with a moment of great reversal. Light was always withdrawn before wrath was revealed. The garden saw night before Adam was cast out. Egypt knew darkness before death claimed her firstborn. The crucifixion, too, was marked by 3 hours of darkness, an eclipse not only of the sun, but of understanding. And what if, just what if, that hour on Calvary was not the end of darkness, but a mirror of a final hour yet to come? In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus says, "This is your hour and the power of darkness." He speaks it not to the night, but to those who come to arrest him, men cloaked not only in armor, but in blindness. Could he have been warning of more than a moment? Could it be that the same hour of darkness will visit again, not just upon him, but upon a sleeping world that has traded light for lies and grace for pride?
Yeah, 100%.
If so, then the darkness we speak of is not symbolic. It is a threshold, a veil, a final mercy before judgment. And when it comes,
Nothing's really symbolic in the Bible, because we know the symbolic already.
all who believe they stand in light will remain standing, because the darkness will reveal not only what is hidden, but what is true. There is a terrifying wisdom hidden in the pattern of God, that before he judges, he hides, and before he speaks, he allows silence to descend like a shroud. The 3 days of darkness are not merely about the absence of light, but about the withdrawal of God's face from a world that no longer wants him. In Exodus, before the final plague, there came a darkness so thick it could be felt. It covered the land of Egypt for 3 days, yet in Goshen, where God's people dwelt, there was light. This was no mere weather. This was spiritual separation. It was as if God said, "You have chosen your gods. Now I will show you what your gods truly are: void, blind, cruel, and silent." And the same judgment is coming again, not only upon nations, but upon households and even hearts. In the last days, the prophets tell us, men's hearts will fail them for fear of what is coming upon the earth. Not only fear of war or famine, but fear of the spiritual weight that will descend when heaven is silent and the demonic is unleashed without restraint. The 3 days of darkness, according to the mystics, will not begin with a trumpet blast or a prophetic sign, but with sudden silence. The sun will vanish, the moon will not rise, and a thick blackness will fall not just over the sky, but over the soul. People will scream, not from pain at first, but from confusion, from disorientation, from the terrifying realization that their prayers are hitting a ceiling, that the presence they assumed was always near has departed for a moment, too holy to be interrupted. But it is not cruelty, it is mercy, because in that
Hello,
silence,
Lise.
the hearts that truly seek
The
him
week in
will cry
hospital I
out.
didn't need.
In that terror, the faithful will be refined. The darkness will divide
No
not
more
by
drinking
doctrine,
ever.
but by fire.
I can't.
Those who carry light within will be preserved, not because they are perfect, but because they are sealed. And those who walked in half light, half truth, will be
Yeah, back
exposed.
to normal.
The 3 days are not just
Thanks,
an
Lise.
apocalyptic punishment, but a divine separation, like the threshing floor, where the wheat is gathered and the chaff is burned. It is God's final whisper to the soul. Choose this day whom you will serve.
Thanks, Vas.
But when that day comes, it will be night. The first
Vas, it was pretty scary. I woke up and coughed and then cleared, and then my belly played up, and I was actually sick, and it was full on blood. And I'm on blood thinners, and I'm thinking, geez, how are they going to fix this? So I went to hospital, and what happened, one of my veins burst in my trachea, and I had to tie it off. And they were worried about the blood thinners, so they put me on normal blood for a while, and then when it improved, they put me back on the blood thinners. But I was scared. They were actually talking about giving me a transfusion.
time we encounter the terror of divine darkness is in the land of Egypt. It was not the first plague, nor the most violent, but it was among the most mysterious. Exodus 10 tells us of a darkness that came upon the land, one that could be felt, one that lasted for 3 days. It was not merely a cloudy sky or an eclipse of nature. The scripture describes.
And guys, when I was in hospital, I actually got Wi-Fi on the tablet, but it kept dropping in and out, so I couldn't leave a message on Discord.
It as a tangible blackness, something that oppressed the soul, something that made movement cease. No one could see anyone else or move about for 3 days, the text says. And yet, in the land of Goshen, where the people of God dwelt, there was light. This was no coincidence. This was divine division. This was heaven declaring, I still know who are mine. The Egyptians, though surrounded by idols, could not call on any of them to lift the darkness. Their gods had no voice, no eyes, no power. They were already in spiritual blindness, and now their bodies experienced the echo of their souls. The 3 days of darkness in Egypt were a warning not just to Pharaoh, but to every generation after that. When light is refused, when truth is mocked, darkness will eventually replace it, not as a punishment alone, but as a consequence of choices made. And that darkness will always reveal who is truly aligned with God. But it didn't end there. Centuries later, on a hill called Golgotha, the sky grew black again. This time, it was not over an empire, but over a cross. From the 6th hour to the 9th, darkness fell upon the land as the Son of God hung between heaven and earth. The light of the world was being offered as a sacrifice, and again the Father hid his face. This darkness was not judgment against the innocent Christ, but the weight of sin being placed upon him. The earth groaned, the heavens darkened, and once again humanity stood divided, those who mocked the light, and those who saw in that moment a holy veil being torn. In both scenes, Egypt and Calvary, the darkness was not random. It was a message, a dividing line, a pause from heaven to ask, can you still see me when all light is removed? And it is this very question that will return once more in the final days, in the last 3 days of this age, when darkness shall fall again, not symbolically, but truly upon the world. The prophet Amos once declared, in that day, says the Lord, I will cause the sun to go down at noon and darken the earth in broad daylight. This was not poetic language. This was prophetic warning. A day will come when light shall be withdrawn, not only from the heavens, but from the hearts of men. And when that day arrives, it will not be explained away by science or shielded by technology. The world will awaken to a silence they cannot name, to an atmosphere heavy with dread, to a sky without sun, moon, or stars. For 3 days, time will feel.
Guys, is it making the news over there? Our Iranian ambassador's been sent home because they were behind a couple of anti-Semitic acts in Sydney where they tried to burn down some synagogues and that. So they actually kicked out the ambassador and they link the attacks to Iran. So we're literally being attacked by Iran. And guys, is it getting any news there? Do you know about this?
Suspended. All rhythms of life will halt. The digital world will crumble. No signal, no sound, no sense of forward movement. And in that stillness, the souls of men will be laid bare. Those who carry light within, who have trimmed their lamps, who have kept oil in secret, who have walked in truth, though surrounded by deception, these shall shine like hidden stars.
Yeah.
But those whose light was borrowed,
yeah, Diana, 2 coppers as well, and the third one's in hospital. Man, you can't go around shooting people. And the guy who done it is a really good bushman, so he can hide in the bush for however long.
Faith was mere
He's like a Rambo.
Performance will find themselves exposed, unable to navigate the darkness they never prepared for. And the terrifying truth will rise. In that hour, no one can borrow oil. No one can fake the flame. The separation will be complete. It will not matter where you live, what you own, or whom you follow online. The only question will be, is there light inside you? In those 3 days, ancient prophecies will align. The darkness will not simply cover the earth. It will awaken what lies beneath it. Portals sealed for centuries will tremble. Principalities long bound in the abyss will stir. And the cries of men will echo.
The one in Australia, the 2 coppers killed in Australia, I don't think he's a tranny.
Through unseen chambers. For many will not realize that what feels like mere absence of sunlight is actually the lifting of divine restraint. It will be
They put him on a conspiracy show, so they blame conspiracy for his attack.
Moment of unveiling, not just of what surrounds us, but of what lives among us. For when the veil is torn once more and the heavens grow silent, every soul will know this is not an eclipse. This is a reckoning. And yet, within that dread, there will be a whisper, a still small voice, as it was in the cave with Elijah. It will speak only to those who have trained their ears to hear beyond the storm, who have hidden the word not just in books, but in their bones. For them, the darkness will be holy. For them, the silence will not bring fear, but clarity. And in those 3 days, they will not perish. They will be prepared. There will be a groaning in creation during those days, like the travail of a woman in labor. The earth will mourn, not because of judgment alone, but because
her waters are broke, hence the floods all over the planet.
The sons of God, those who have been hidden in caves, ridiculed in public, and tested in fire, are about to be revealed. For just as Jonah came forth from the belly of the great fish after 3 days, and just as Christ rose on the 3rd, so too shall a remnant rise when the darkness lifts. But it will not be with loud proclamation. It will not be through the platforms of man. It will be with fire in their eyes, oil in their bones, and the word written upon their foreheads. They will walk among ruins, yet untouched. They will speak, and the earth will tremble, not because of volume, but because of the weight of truth. Many will search for answers in those days, flipping through ancient texts, unlocking forbidden scrolls, seeking prophets on distant mountains. But the answers will not be found in places, nor in personalities. The answers will arise from within those who were prepared in secret. They are the ones who knew this was coming, not from YouTube, not from dreams alone, but from the Spirit who whispered through long nights of silence. They will not be shaken, for the darkness will feel like home to them, like a womb before the birthing, like the cleft of the rock where Moses saw the glory pass by. And when they open their mouths, it will not be with panic, but with prophecy. For these 3 days are not just punishment, they are preparation. The bride is being tested, the lamps are being checked, the heavens are watching, angels stand at attention, demons recoil, for they know, once the darkness breaks, nothing will be the same again. It will mark the end of delay, the line will be drawn. And those who slept will wake up not to comfort, but to consequence. But those who watched, those who waited, those who worshipped in silence and obeyed when no one saw, they will rise with clarity. And their voices will not echo the world, they will thunder from heaven. There is a reason why darkness has always been sacred in the scriptures. It was in darkness that the Spirit hovered over the face of the deep. It was in darkness that Abraham fell into a deep sleep, and the covenant was sealed with fire. It was in the night that the death angel passed through Egypt, and it was in that same darkness that the blood on the doorposts began.
You'd think expelling an ambassador from Iran, you'd expect that to make world news, wouldn't you? But you aren't even hearing about it.
Came salvation. In the natural, darkness is feared, but in the spirit, darkness is often the veil behind which the...
They've probably got something else set up for that, and that's why they're doing that.
Glory of God is concealed. It is the furnace where true faith is formed, the hidden chamber where obedience is tested, and pride is stripped away like decaying garments. The coming darkness those 3 days we speak of is not merely an external event. It is not just a blackout of sun and moon. It is a spiritual veil, descending not just upon the earth, but into the hearts of men. In that hour, the question will not be, where is the light? But, what has been cultivated in the absence of light? For many have lived their faith in the daytime when blessings are seen, prayers are answered quickly, and God feels near. But the true test of intimacy is not in abundance, but in absence. When the voice grows silent, when heaven feels closed, when the only sound is the echo of your own footsteps in the valley, that is where many will either be refined or revealed as frauds.
I've been through my valley.
And there is something terrifying about this revelation, not that evil will be exposed, but that what was never real will be shown for what it is. Ministries built on charisma, not consecration. Songs sung without surrender, prophecies given for applause. All will be weighed, and the fire will not spare anything unworthy. In that hour, many will cry out, Lord, Lord, not because they love him, but because their scaffolding has collapsed. Their structures, be they churches, platforms, titles, or self-images, will not survive the shaking. Only those rooted in the fear of the Lord will remain. Only those who have walked with him in secret will understand that this darkness is not their enemy, it is their vindication. There is something ancient that stirs in this hour of silence, a spiritual shaking that will not simply disrupt the visible world, but awaken realms that have long been dormant. As the earth groans and the sky withholds its light, the souls of men will begin to feel the weight of eternity pressing in. Those who once danced lightly through life will suddenly walk heavy, sensing that the unseen is no longer distant. The veil will not just fall, it will burn. And behind it, the true landscape of the Spirit will be revealed, no longer blurred by distraction, no longer diluted by the noise of men. Angels will descend not with music, but with fire. Demons, no longer hiding in shadows, will begin to manifest openly. What was once subtle will become visible. What was once whispered will now roar. In the 3 days of divine darkness, the theater of human pride will shut down. The spotlights of fame, fortune, and flattery will flicker out. And in that silence, men will remember the voice they ignored, the whisper in the night, the tug in the heart, the conviction that once came after compromise. They will remember that God never stopped speaking. They simply stopped listening. This is the hour when memory will become judgment, when the weight of forgotten warnings will become heavier than chains. It is not God's wrath they will fear, it is their own realization that they walked through decades of mercy, and never bowed, that they heard sermons and felt nothing, that they tasted glory and chose vanity, that they had oil but traded it for applause. This is why the wise will not fear the darkness. They have already died 1,000 deaths in secret. They have walked through deserts no one saw. They have fasted, wept, obeyed, repented not for men, but for God. And now, when the lights go out, they will not panic. They will shine, not with worldly
I like him, me vast. I used to play him a bit, remember?
brilliance, but with the quiet glow of a life hidden in Christ. These are the ones who will lead in silence, speak without words, and command without titles, because they were formed in the same darkness that now surrounds the world. And they know it is not the end, it is the revealing. In the ancient patterns of Scripture, darkness was never just a punishment, it was a preparation. Before the Exodus, there were 3 days of thick darkness over Egypt, so heavy that none could rise from their place. But in the dwellings of the faithful, there was light, not natural light, not the sun, but something spiritual, an illumination that came from obedience, from covenant, from trust in the unseen. That same darkness is returning, not to crush, but to separate, not to condemn, but to reveal where the true fire dwells. For when the world is stripped bare, when systems collapse and voices fall silent, what remains is what has always been true. And many will discover, to their terror, that their faith was only furniture decorative, but not foundational. Beautiful, but breakable. Visible, but powerless. In this time, a new kind of remnant will rise, not dressed in gold, but in sackcloth. Not loud, but unshakable. Not demanding influence, but carrying authority. These are the ones who have made peace with the wilderness, who have learned the language of silence, who have walked with God when no one was watching. And they will not be shaken, because they were already sifted. They will not be confused, because they already died to the world's illusions. They will stand not because they are stronger, but because they are emptied. And in their emptiness, heaven will fill them with power. These are the torchbearers, the midnight intercessors, the hidden warriors whose time has come. And as this generation stares into the approaching silence, as the last lights of comfort and culture begin to flicker, the Spirit is calling not to the crowds, but to the caves. Not to the influencers, but to the intercessors. He is not searching for the famous, but for the faithful. For in the day when darkness falls, and every man's house is tested, it will not be charisma that sustains, it will be consecration. Not talent, but tears. Not applause, but altars. And those who have built those altars in secret will now become the ones who carry the fire through the night. Look around. The signs are no longer hidden in the shadows, they are written in broad daylight, etched into the noise of our cities and the silence of our homes. We live in an age that glorifies stimulation and avoids stillness. In this generation, silence is suspicious, solitude is strange, and prayer is powerless unless it produces results. We have built a culture that runs from the spiritual realm while pretending to be spiritual. We speak of energy, vibration, alignment, yet we tremble at the name of holiness. We fear demons, but we do not fear God. And in this vacuum, the spirit realm does not remain empty, it responds. Where true worship is absent, counterfeit fire fills the void. Many think the spiritual war is distant, that it only belongs to ancient texts and superstitious minds. But the truth is far more terrifying. The war has already moved into our bedrooms, our dreams, our silence. What we watch, what we scroll, what we listen to, these are the new gates. Every opened door has a consequence. Every compromise gives legal ground. You cannot binge darkness by day and expect peace by night. You cannot entertain death and demand protection from it. Yet that is what many believers do, feasting on fear, feeding on lust, flirting with rebellion, and then crying out for peace when night falls. But heaven does not respond to double-minded prayers. The Spirit does not fill vessels already claimed by vanity. And now a shift is occurring. The veil is thinning. The sleep of the saints is being disturbed, not by accident, but by design. For God will no longer allow his people to slumber in deception. The nightmares, the paralysis, the shadows, these are not just attacks, they are alarms, warnings, holy disruptions, permitted to awaken what comfort has put to sleep. And still, many hit snooze, choosing distraction over deliverance, comfort over confrontation. But the time of ignorance is passing. The nights will become heavier, the visitations more frequent, the silence more charged, not to punish, but to provoke the question, what have you welcomed while you were unaware? There is a reason why, in these final days, darkness no longer hides, it parades. No longer content with subtle whispers, the spirits now speak through screens, through trends, through teachers who wear light but carry decay. Children are no longer taught to fear God, but to affirm themselves. Churches are no longer houses of trembling glory, but stages of performance, noise, and applause. And in this shift, a door has been opened, a wide, well-decorated path, where ancient spirits return under modern names, and the lines between holy and profane have blurred into fog. You see, Satan has grown more refined, not more merciful. He does not need to terrify you with horns if he can.
Hey, Darren, good to see you, mate.
Seduce you with ideology, distract you with endless scrolling. He no longer needs to possess, he only needs to entertain. But the Spirit of the Lord is not silent. Even now, he is sounding the trumpet, not in the skies, but in the night watches, in the quiet moments where your soul stirs and your dreams turn strange. That sudden fear at 3 a.m., that pressure in the room.
Diane, they're taking over fighter jets. So they're going to be flying fighter jets by remote control. That's no problem, but it takes out the man's. You need a man's decision, not a robot's.
That dark figure watching but not moving. It is not merely an attack. It is a divine permission, a confrontation. For heaven does not allow what it will not use. The night terror you feel may be an invitation to awaken, not just to natural life, but to a supernatural awareness. A call to rise from the slumber of compromise.
That's where you got a supernatural awareness.
From the intoxication of cultural comfort. And yet, many harden their hearts. They treat their sleep disturbances with medication instead of repentance. They flee from the mystery instead of asking for discernment. They light a candle but never seek the fire of the Holy Spirit. But make no mistake, this window will not stay open.
A lot
forever.
Of jobs.
The shaking will increase, not to destroy you, but to separate those who are awake from those who remain amused. The age of casual Christianity is ending. The lines are being redrawn, and in the nights to come, only those who have trained their ears to hear in the Spirit will stand. Only those who have welcomed the discipline of divine discomfort will endure. For the realm of dreams is no longer a playground, it is a battlefield. And every night you close your eyes without armor, you gamble with eternity. Do not be deceived. What you tolerate in your dreams, you will eventually allow in your waking life. The spirit realm is not a fantasy. It is a court where permissions are granted, covenants are made, and destinies are marked. Each night you sleep, your soul either ascends to receive instruction from the Spirit of God, or is lured into deception by voices wearing familiar faces. And how many have awakened with strange burdens, unexplained fears,
I was never here. Good to
lusts they
see
never
you.
entertained before, memories that are not theirs. These are not random. These are spiritual seeds sown in the soil of ignorance. And the enemy laughs, not because he is strong, but because the church has forgotten how to fight in the dark. In the coming days, the lines will sharpen even more. There will be a people who walk in discernment so sharp they can smell lies behind smiles, who can see spirits behind words, who will not be fooled by soft lighting and emotional music. These are the ones who have wrestled with the night, who have refused the easy sleep of this age, who have fasted not just food but comfort, who have asked for dreams not of themselves, but from God. They are not many, but they are rising. And if you are hearing these words, it may be that you are among them. So do not brush off the terror you felt in the darkness. Do not silence the questions rising from your soul. Begin to seek, begin to fast, begin to pray with
Shawnee,
vigilance, not routine.
I was just asking about you, where you are. Good to see you, Shawnee.
Anoint your room, sanctify your night, and above all, ask the Lord to open your eyes while you sleep, that you may see what is really visiting you, and know whose side you truly belong to. For the war is no longer coming, it has already entered your house, your phone, your dreams. And now the Spirit whispers, "Awake, O sleeper, and rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you." So
look at that,
I
capital
leave you
letters.
with a question that cannot be answered quickly, and perhaps should not be answered at all until your spirit has been quieted, until your mind has ceased its frantic searching, and your soul has returned to the feet of the one who never sleeps. What if your dreams were not simply stories, but summon? What if the realm you visit while your body rests is more real than the world you wake up to? What if the dark man...
Guys, this happened to me one night. I'm laying there, I've just woke up and I'm sort of half asleep, and at the same time, I'm with, there's no other way to say it, I'm with two angels, up with the angels. At the same time, I was asleep on the bed, and I could tell it was me, but in two different places. But the one on the bed was the one I remembered the best. But these things happen. It's really, really weird stuff.
Who stood at the edge of your bed was not a figment of fear, but a spirit with a name, a mission, and a legal claim. You may never know the depth of that night's encounter, but heaven knows and hell remembers. The spirit realm is a place of memory, of record, and of consequence. Nothing that happens there is forgotten. Nothing that is permitted goes without fruit.
I wonder why they're not publishing or getting out there the Iranian ambassador we expelled. Why aren't they doing a story on this?
This is why the wise guard their sleep like a sanctuary. They pray before they lie down. They cover their house with the name of Jesus. They welcome angels. They rebuke intruders. And when they dream, they ask not for entertainment, but for truth, for warning, for revelation. So tonight, when you turn off the light, do not enter your sleep as one who is unaware. Enter as one stepping across the veil. Invite the Spirit of truth to be your guide. Ask the Lord to sanctify your mind, to close every door opened by fear, lust, or rebellion. Plead the blood of Jesus over your thoughts,
Amen.
Your memories, your very breath. And if, in the middle of the night, you find yourself in a place...
I hope we wear them sort of clothes in heaven. Check out him, he looks really cool.
You do not understand, or standing before a figure who does not speak but stares, you will not be alone. The Lamb walks with his own, even in the shadowed places. But you must belong to him, fully,
Amen.
Completely, without compromise. No more pretending, no more half sleeping, no more calling every nightmare a dream, and every warning a coincidence. The time is late, the veil is thin,
Guys, when I was in hospital last week, I put a few feelers out there about Jesus and the end days. I just done it subtly, but I was really surprised. No, if you're not Christian, you don't know any of this is happening. I couldn't believe they're going on like when they went to and fro before Noah's Ark. It's exactly the same thing now, and they're completely ignorant of the things we know. We're sort of different to most people.
Watchers are moving.
Because we know what's going on.
And tonight may not simply be a night, it may be a turning point. So ask yourself, before you sleep, When the spirit realm opens once again, will I enter as prey or as a child of the light?
Okay, I like that one. I'll save that.
See why social media can't stop sharing this hydrogen water bottle. I never post stuff like this, but I had to share. I drink water.
I've addressed those in the past. I'm skeptical because brought to you by PrayLatin.com, makers of prayer cards featuring complete English phonetic renderings of Latin pronunciation. It is time once again for us to revisit the messages of Father Malachi Martin. And for those of you who are skeptical of him because of the smear campaigns run against him, I've addressed those in the past. I'm skeptical because there's always a Jesuit connected to them. And given that he wrote a book called The Jesuits, and right after he wrote that book, the attacks on it began in full force, usually coming from Jesuits or people connected directly to them. I'm skeptical, to put it mildly. This is an organization that he demonstrates in his work is fully capable of fabricating things against people. And then they did just that. So anyway, I'm not going to buy those comments. I'm not going to buy those attacks on him. I've spoken to people who knew him personally, several of them, and I'll take their word for his character. Thank you very much. Today we're going to talk about Father Malachi Martin's messages about the state of the church leading into the 3 days of darkness. And he doesn't have a huge amount to say, so what I'm going to
Darren, what was that channel?
do at the end is tie it to a message about the 3 days of darkness that is not widely known from a mystic that most of you have never heard of. And if you would like her message brought more fully, I can do a separate video on that in the future. So
The one we just had.
The messages
Hang on, I'll find it for you.
Father Malachi Martin spoke about with the 3 days of
History.
darkness is a little different than what you're used to from Marie Julie Jeheni and a few others, because he does speak about the danger of trying to be out and about during the 3 days without light, but what he talks about makes clear that there would be two separate events. At least a more mild 3 days of darkness because of how he talks about what comes afterwards, and then a hint at the one that you're more familiar with. Let's begin here with the state of the church, though, and the third secret of Fatima, because this ties in. So, according to Father Martin, John Paul II in Fulda, Germany, in 1980 was surrounded by a special group of Catholics, and they were in a typical conference-sized room. According to him, he says, quote, "I was there," and they were allowed to ask him, John Paul II, questions directly face-to-face, unrehearsed. It was not a
There's the last channel I just played, Vast.
press conference, just question and answer. And they said to him,
Oh,
Holy Father,
you. Oh,
have you read
sorry.
The Secret? And he said, yes, I have. I've read it twice. And they said, will you tell us what is in it? And he said, no, I won't. And they said, is it bad? Are there chastisements? He said, I can't answer that because if I answer that question, it will be sensational. He said, supposing I was to tell you that Florence would float away and that there were going to be 3 days of darkness and that one whole nation would be wiped out completely, wiped out, that the sun would be darkened.
And guys, don't forget, Mike from around the world said Italy is sitting on a giant volcano and they're actually evacuating people. So they're expecting Italy to collapse.
For another 5 days. And that
Would happen in them 3 days by the sounds of it.
most of the earth would be afflicted with affliction similar, if not exactly the same as what we experienced in 2020, that they couldn't cure but could live with. And supposing that all the volcanoes erupted, what would you call that? They said, sensational. And he said, so what's the point of telling you that? And then they said, well, Holy Father, are there punishments? He said, there are punishments.
Want effective pain and fever relief for your little one? Nurofen for Children provides up to 8 hours relief for fever and ache pains, including cold and flu pain, post-immunization pain, teething pain, and more. Nurofen for Children and Terry White Cat Mart, dedicated to care.
Bonkers.
And they said, can we avert those punishments? And he said, no, you can't. It's too late. He said, you can mitigate them. And then he took his rosary out of his pocket and said, say that. It's the only protection you have.
See, there you go, the rosary beads. I'm not on board with them.
Say that every day of your life, meaning the rosary, folks. It's the only protection. And they said,
the rosary is the only protection, not Christ, the rosary. Yeah, this guy's definitely Catholic.
Within what time limit? And he said, I can't answer that. And they said, well, why can't you publish the letter? And he said, because if I publish that letter, and here's the interesting part, it would give an edge to the adversaries from the Cold War that the West could not resist. There's information in it which is vital to the defense of the West. End quote. I'll go more into the Cold War adversaries and their role in our time in the talk I do in February or March on the evil program of our rulers that Malachi Martin warned about. He was skeptical that our Cold War adversaries actually ever surrendered because he had information otherwise they were up to something. Now we're probably seeing it now. But that country figures prominently in that talk. Well, let's move on to the 3 Days of Darkness itself. In an interview with Bernard Jansen in 1997, Father Malachi said the following, quote, today, unfortunately, the denial of...
I dreamt a couple of nights ago I lost my wallet. I'm going to go and look up what that means.
Christ's revelation is abroad in the church, in the organization. That's the difficulty. I always point out to people, even non-Catholics, there is a distinction between the union of all believers who are practicing their faith and the organization which vehicles that. The Roman Catholic Church is the ideal vehicle for believers in Christ, but it's only an organization and it's fading. And one of the sub-themes of Windswept House is that in a short time, humanly speaking, there will be no Holy Roman Catholic Church organization. There won't be any, and we must deal with that. End quote. Provocative statement that the visible church will go away. How can the visible church as an institution disappear? How could that possibly be, you might ask? It is replaced by the ape of the church, as Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich warned about in numerous myth prophecies I've warned of. In those various prophecies that I've presented before, Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich warned that some sort of internal adversary of the church, she gave these warnings a century before the crisis of modernism appeared, would infiltrate the church, subvert it, tear down the institution, and build a false edifice over the ruins of the church, making it look like, well, building an ape of the church.
Pray for your back, I was never here. Thank you.
Fake church that calls itself the Catholic Church, but is not the Catholic Church. Apparently, Fulton Sheen had read Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich in some capacity because he warned of this too. It's where I get the term ape of the church from. That they would build something that looks Catholic but emptied of its divine essence. That is what Father Malachi Martin is clearly talking about here. It's worth noting that Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich, in her various warnings about this, said that ultimately they would fail and the ape of the church would come tumbling down and that the church would be restored. All of that, though, leads to this, what Father Malachi Martin warned about in this conversation he had with Art Bell in 1996. He implies that there will be two sun-darkening events, the first of which will be a warning for everyone preceding the second, the more infamous 3 Days of Darkness. Perhaps this is the warning that he spoke about in the last video I did on Father Malachi Martin, which you didn't see, came out in December. Here Art Bell asks the question, Doctor, meaning Father Martin, 3 Days of Darkness? Malachi says, yes. There's no doubt about it. There's going to be 3 days when there is a great darkness over our earth and during which it will be dangerous to be abroad. Be outside your home and even in your home it may be dangerous. Art Bell responds, 3 days without the sun.
Shawnee, I've dreamt about tsunamis. I've dreamt about mass lawlessness. That's the main one I dream of when I have a nightmare.
Father Martin responds, 3 days.
But I must admit, I haven't had a dream worth remembering for a few months now. It's been a while since I've had dreams, but nothing to do with things like that.
Days without the natural light we're used to, yes, without that. But it's like everything else. When it takes place, they, meaning the forces of the world, our rulers, will endeavor to give it an astronomical and geophysical explanation, end quote. two events here. He's talking about the first one. In other words, most people will survive the first event. The powers of the world will try to give a purely natural explanation for a purely supernatural event. The next year, Father Martin went into more details about this in another interview he gave to Art Bell. So here is Art Bell asking the question. Father, we talked some time ago about 3 days of darkness. You said it would be dangerous to be abroad, outside your home, or even inside your home. Somebody is asking, what is the nature of the danger? Is it civil, natural, spiritual? Good question. Many of you watching this have asked that same question. Malachi Martin responds, quote, it is spiritual. That particular prophetic fact is based on a private revelation which churchmen have accepted, made in various places.
Real life insurance really helped us when Isaac's mum passed away.
Yeah.
We received her full cover amount.
I think the mass lawlessness, I actually think they were future dreams. You're right. I was never here.
1946 in La Salette, France, and in Fatima, Portugal in 1917, and then various other places since then.
When Diana died in the 90s, I had a dream that Diana got killed in a car crash, and I knew it was prophetic. So I said to Mum and Dad, because I wasn't a partner at the time, I said, mark my words, Diana will be killed by a car crash. And a week later she was, and I knew it was going to be prophetic.
Note here.
And guys, I don't tell lies and make things up, so you know that happened to me.
He says the 3 days of darkness is mentioned in the third secret. And it concerns the arrival of a final chastisement, punishment from God to purify men and women, prepare them for entry into heaven. Not rapture like according to one evangelical theory, but actually the end of the world. It's not exactly around the corner, Art. It's at a time when a figure called the Antichrist is abroad, and it's a very complicated issue, the whole thing. The actual danger itself during those 3 days of total darkness over the earth, the dimming of the sun completely, and no light. It's a time when the last efforts of the demons to run our lives and to take souls away from the salvation that Christ has worked out. End quote. Other mystics have said the same thing, that during the 3 days of darkness, this will be the final push by the demons to capture souls. Don't think about this, though. The Antichrist, the 3 days of darkness, he thought those events were near, but not immediately at hand. Granted, that was in 1998. That's not all he said on the subject, though. I'll take this opportunity to present another 3 days of darkness message, one that is mostly unknown to most people watching this.
Come here,
I'm a church-approved mystic on her way to canonization, and that is Blessed Anna Maria Taigi, who was beatified by Pope Benedict XV during the First World War. The beatification process includes examining all the potential mystical experiences and alleged messages that they received. Having done that investigation, the Holy Office gave the Pope, Benedict XV, the seal of approval for her beatification. It's worth noting here, folks, she passed the smell test with a 3 days of darkness message. So here's Blessed Anna Maria Taigi's 3 days of darkness message, part of a larger message she had.
No, I'm not.
There shall come over the whole earth an intense darkness, lasting 3 days and 3 nights. Nothing will be able to be seen, and the air will be laden with pestilence, which will claim mainly, but not only, the enemies of religion. It will be impossible to use any man-made light during this darkness, except blessed candles. He who out of curiosity opens his window to look out or leaves his home will drop on the spot. During these 3 days, people should remain in their homes, praying the Holy Rosary and begging God for mercy. All the enemies of the church, known and unknown, will perish over the whole earth during that universal darkness, with the exception of a few whom God will soon convert. The air shall be infested by demons who will appear under all sorts of hideous forms. Blessed Anna Maria Taigi goes on to tell how the 3 days will end with a triumph of heaven. Quote, after the 3 days of darkness, Saints Peter and Paul, having come down from heaven, will preach throughout the world and designate a new pope. A great light will flash from their bodies and will settle upon the future pontiff. There shall be innumerable conversions of heretics who will return to the bosom of the church. all will note the edifying conduct of their lives, as well as of all other Catholics. The country that is the aggressor in the conflict that the media is obsessed with right now, England and the Middle Kingdom, will come to the church. End quote. I have my doubts that Peter and Paul will literally come down from heaven in the flesh, like Elias and Enoch, to choose a new pontiff, but I'm prepared to be wrong about that. I suspect that their hand will be at play in the post-chastisement restoration of the visible church to such a degree that it becomes obvious to everyone that the truly miraculous and heavenly forces are at work. But that message of Blessed Taiji is part of a larger message that makes it clear that she is talking about the present crisis in the church that has been ongoing since at least the 1950s. I mean, more than a century, honestly, since Pius X wrote Ascendi detailing this crisis back in 1907. But let me know if you want Blessed Anna Maria Taiji's full message in its own video. I can do that with some analysis. Also, I am preparing to put together my synthesis of not only all major Marian apparitions that had prophetic warnings, but also a separate synthesis video on all of the, or as many of the approved private revelations from various mystics throughout history about the chastisement. And you will see that they are very similar messages indeed. But I'm curious what you thought about what Father Malachi Martin had to say here, as well as Blessed Anna Maria Taiji and her message. And remember, with Blessed Anna Maria Taiji, this is private revelation. You are not required to believe this if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine to have doubts about it. And remember also what our Lord warned about false prophets and things in the Bible. A lot of people should remember that, especially dealing with contemporary mystics running around on the internet right now, trying to tell you that they've had personal revelations from God. Anyway, let me know what you thought of this in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help, as does sharing this on social media. That helps a lot too. A special thank you to the member of the audience here who shared this, who put together a lot of these messages for me from various different sources. It is appreciated. As always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stein. Ave Maria.
Told you it's Catholic, Ave Maria. Hang on, you've got to change vids now. Give me a sec, guys. Okay, let's give this one a go. The new camera takes up the whole TV, so I'm glad I got it. Upcoming 3 days of darkness, warning to humanity. And it looks like they've got tall Nords there, so it might be something about tall Nords.
The 3 days of darkness is coming soon. The cosmic event that'll rewrite your reality forever. Are you ready to ascend?
No.
Get ready for a revelation that'll leave you absolutely stunned. The 3 days of darkness has been a topic of fear, confusion, and wild curiosity for centuries. But I'm here to shatter those myths and unveil the mind-blowing truth that'll change how you see everything. This isn't a disaster to dread. It's a cosmic game changer that'll transform the very fabric of our existence. We're standing on the edge of an extraordinary shift that'll redefine humanity, and I'm here to guide you through every step of this incredible journey. If the thought of the 3 days of darkness sends chills down your spine or fills you with anxiety, you're not alone. Most people think it's a catastrophic end-of-the-world scenario, but the reality is far more incredible than you could ever imagine. This isn't a punishment. It's a cosmic reset, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to release old, heavy energies, expand your consciousness, and step into a higher frequency of existence that'll awaken your true potential. Want to know what this means for you and how it'll change your life? Stick with me as we unravel the truth. There's no need for fear, only clarity, peace, and excitement for what's ahead. This is your moment to prepare for a reality-shifting event that'll alter the course of humanity, Don't miss out on this cosmic awakening. Let's take a deep breath together and dive into this transformative journey. You're probably wondering, is this safe? What does this mean for me and my loved ones? How can I prepare for something so mysterious? I've got all the answers, and they're better than you think. This shift isn't something to fear. It's your golden ticket to becoming a more enlightened version of yourself, and we're all in this together.
Okay, no mention of the Bible, so I'm going to switch off this one. Let's go to good old Tony.
Through it.
There he is. He's gone grey since we last seen him.
Came across something rather amazing, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We got this rather curious thing called Himalayan pink salt. Now, of course, at first glance, you'd be like, what's the big deal? Well, it's kind of interesting, the shape of how this rock looks when you cut through it. And we actually have numerous examples of this. Look at this. It looks like something different than rock. Okay, you can see they actually have numerous pictures. We're actually going to get into a lot of things in this video. I'm going to show you how, and this is the type of rocks that look like actual beef. There's ones that look like pork, and it's salt. It's salt. It's Himalayan pink salt in many of these cases. And I'm going to tie this into some ancient writings. Okay.
This is God Rules Too. Who asked that?
This is amazing.
This is God Rules Too. Do you want me to post the link?
I was thinking at first, this is a little strange, and I haven't seen anybody else make this connection, but it makes perfect sense when I tell you certain stories that you might be familiar with. You remember a certain lady being turned into a pillar, of salts?
That's true, Phil. They don't mention 3 days darkness at all. But it is interesting that Egypt went through 3 days. Did it say 3 days? I think it does, that Egypt went through them. So there is a precedent set for this. So it's not beyond maybe happening.
Scripture.
And guys, did you see that practice run on the heifer on the Temple Mount? It wasn't a practice run. They actually went through the ritual.
Could that have happened to some other beings in the ancient past? Oh, yes. Actually, apparently there's numerous stories of gods, of giant beings being turned into rock. And salt is a rock.
Mud fossils.
And what's interesting about this topic is when you start to look into how these rocks look. This is from a normal channel here. It's called Pure Farm. He's talking about how Himalayan pink salt is mined and processed, how it is made. This is literally all the video's about. Check this out.
Workers in cave rock rely on time-honored techniques, chiseling away at the massive salt wall.
Look at the wall. Look at like the layers on it.
With hand tools and basic machinery.
Doesn't that look like a giant piece of meat? In at least in certain respects, right? That's a little strange. That was just a common video about Himalayan pink salt. It's got almost 1 million views here on YouTube. Okay, so I was thinking, okay, what people are trying to claim these were, of course, beings in the past, and they died, and then they actually show mountains that look like creatures. And there's actually one, it looks literally like a human laying down on one rock. Now, of course, you could say this is like looking at the clouds. You look at the clouds, you see whatever shape. It might look like Snoopy or whatever, right? You could say that. You could say, well, it's just a weird coincidence. But then you start looking at how this rock looks, and it's really bizarre. And then I get into some of these ancient stories that talk about this happening in the ancient past. Let me just play this real quick. You can see here the rock being cut. Look how red it is. That's just so bizarre how it looks. Right? Now, of course, they pull up various rock formations that just look very bizarre. You have to ask yourself, obviously the common interpretation of uniformitarianism. Oh, just everything's been the same. It's been millions of years. It doesn't exactly explain why rock looks like pork. Okay, this is literally rock. That's rock. It looks like pork belly in some cases. You can see there, it looks like a man. It's so weird, right? And actually, I can show you one that looks really bizarre. I've shown this before. It looks like an alligator. The entire thing looks like an alligator. Okay, you can even see how it looks like it has teeth. And of course, you've seen how there are petrified trees over in Yellowstone. Why can't there be petrified animals in some cases, right? Like an alligator. Is that even possible?
Yep.
So the question is,
I've seen giant elephants made of rock.
why does it look so uncannily like meat when they're rocks? It looks literally like a piece of meat. Look at that. That is a rock.
Diane, the last blood moon we had, I went out to watch it, and I swear it was glowing and full of gold. And I looked at it, I thought, wow, it's a gold moon. I've never heard of that. So, and apparently it depends on where you are when the moon's getting eclipsed. But it looked golden and it was actually stunning. And I knew it's not a regular thing, so I looked it up a bit. But yeah, I saw a golden moon. I even said to Mum, because she came out and watched it with me, I said, Mum, is it just me or what colour is that cloud? The moon. And she said it's gold. So it wasn't just me.
You could use that as a prop easily because of how much it looks like a piece of meat. Look at this. Look at that one. That is a rock. He puts it on with I think here he's just trying to compare it to a piece of meat. I'm guessing that's what this picture is. Look at that one. It looks like a piece of meat. Okay, so actually it looks more like that one's the piece of meat right there. Right? That's the piece of meat. This is the rock. The rock looks more like a piece of meat than the piece of meat does. What's going on here, dude? That's nuts, right? That's pretty crazy. Now, I was curious about this, so I started looking into it. Now, like I said, before we go any farther, because I'm going to show you a number of other things that are kind of amazing, ancient texts talking about this, and also other pictures that are just uncanny. First, I got to mention, we have a giveaway going on currently. We're giving away $500 Amazon gift cards. We're giving away a $500 laptop, 6 different things worth $500. You have easily a 100 chance of winning, assuming it goes like my normal giveaways, which only like 7,000-8,000 people get involved. Hundreds of thousands of people watch the video and no one pauses it and actually clicks on the thing below. You could literally get $500, and you could easily make it a 1 in 50 chance of winning simply by just filling out this entire thing below. And actually, it's very easy. Almost all of it take you about 1 or 2 minutes. You just put your name and email in once, and you just click a bunch of buttons. And you get multiple new entries by subscribing or following or just looking at a page or whatever. And you can get multiple more entries and easily improve your odds of winning. Link is in the description for that. Of course, also this book here, The Lost Ways, How Your Great-Great-Grandfather Lived Without Electricity, or the seller do things around the house like they did in the old days, hundreds of pages illustrated. You might need that book, considering all the wonderful things, I'm being completely sarcastic, happening around us all the time. wars and all the other things. You might want to be prepared for whatever it is. $37, get the printed version. And of course, food supplies. Well, what if you can't get to the store? Link is in the description for that as well. At any rate, so we have here the composition of pink Himalayan salts. Sodium chloride, obviously salts, typically ranging 94 to 99% salts, right? I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. It also has calcium, magnesium, potassium, and iron in it. It's like, okay, that makes sense. It's basically salts, right? And I was like, wait a second. Is there any stories that relate to this? What about Lot's, of course, wife? You remember that whole story? She was turned into a pillar.
So they actually found dinosaur fossils with wet blood tissues in them. So they're not millions of years ago. They were around in the recent times. What? Yeah.
You know, of salts. And it was because she had disobeyed a command.
I haven't read it yet.
And
so
it was because it was for a city, actually multiple cities. I think it was actually 5 cities of the plain. If you look at the book of Jasher, it's not just the one. It's actually multiple cities in this plain, and they had very crazy laws. And they didn't treat people very well. Let's just put it that way. They treated people very badly, according to the book of Jasher. And I've covered that actually on my channel here in the past, many years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago at least. But what was really interesting is how she was turned into, of course, salts. And I was thinking, well, wait a second. Is there any other stories like this? And another factor to this story of the city, these cities, of course, having this happen to them, is that they were trying to get with angels. And if you understand the whole concept of giants in the ancient context, that's how you did it. You got with angels, and you did something with angels. I'm sure you can figure out what that is. Mating, you know what I mean? And then you would have giant, of course, offspring. So they were trying to get with angels. Now everyone assumes it was the men. Perhaps it wasn't. Maybe it was the women, because they needed to have, perhaps they had a religion where they were trying to go that direction, because a lot of cultures did that stuff in the ancient past.
They did. Especially
maybe that's the part people didn't notice. They just assumed certain things when they read the story. They didn't think about, wait, what if it was the women? Wait, what if they were trying to get to have offspring?
I was never here. They're talking about blocking YouTube for people under 16 in Australia, and it's gone down as a bad attack on free speech. We've got the worst government I've ever seen, the worst government we've ever seen.
Right.
He's destroying us.
Could this be related to what we saw with the flood, the giant one in the ancient past? And of course, that judgment, right? I was thinking about that. And I was checking out ChatGPT, Google AI, trying to figure out what they had to say about these topics. Does any of the books surrounding the scriptures, such as the Pseudepigrapha Apocrypha, talk about wanting to bring back giants? No, the answer is no in the context of the story with Lot, okay? Apparently with the 5 cities of the plain, including obviously the infamous one here, which I'm sure you know, they were not trying to do that, at least explicitly never stated. But if you read into it and say, wait a second, they were trying to get with angels, wait a second, what if it was the women?
Yep.
Then you can see how maybe that was the case. And that's literally what they were doing. And that might have what brought it forth, because of course, God didn't want this to have continued on the earth,
yep,
as we saw back in Noah's time.
The amazing sale is on now at Snooze. Save up to 50%.
That's what I was talking about, vast blood vessels in fossils of Tyrannosaurus rexes.
Just selected match.
And it's not just one, they found them all over the planet now.
And up to 30% on selected bed frames. Hurry, sale on Sunday.
It's amazing what a little Snooze can do.
We are independent women. We can do whatever we like.
It's not you. What are you seeing?
Outrageous. Now streaming only on BritBox.
Confused by all the products for your doggo?
I was never here. I broke my tablet a couple of days ago, so I bought a new one. And what was I going to tell you?
Cat, 2 hugs. Oh, hello. Personalised product.
That's right. Yeah, so I bought a new tablet, and how you get the tablet going? It takes your fingerprint. You actually got to touch the tablet in a certain spot, and it takes your fingerprint, and that's how you get in the tablets now. So they're already doing that sort of stuff.
Recommendation
My voice is rather hoarse.
from Swaggle. Too easy. Swaggle, the Too Easy pet store. Too easy.
It's not a hybrid. It's a Honda hybrid.
Been dreaming of your next adventure? With AirPass, you get limited time deals and huge savings on flight.
Now, I asked ChatGPT another question. What are some examples in ancient texts of beings being turned into, of course, salt? As a form, of judgment, one of the most well-known examples, obviously, is the one we see in Scripture, Lot's, of course, wife. But then if you look at other ones, Greek mythology, metamorphosis, I think is how you say it. Ovid contains dozens of examples of transformation as divine punishment. People turned into trees, animals turned into stones, etc. I think people turned into trees, animals, and stones. We saw that also in a passage about Nebuchadnezzar. He was turned into essentially an animal, at least in his brain. Well, maybe we're just assuming that's what it was saying. He acted like an animal. Perhaps he literally was partially an animal for a short time. I don't know. You have to tie this. You look at these other ancient texts and tie it in. And a lot of people, when they look at the scriptures, they don't do that. They isolate it. They ignore all these ancient texts surrounding it, when it could be saying something very similar. Niobe turned into stone for her hubris in book number 6 of Greek mythology, Ovid's Metamorphosis. These transformations often symbolize a moral or spiritual, of course, judgment akin to what we saw in Scripture. You got Ugaritic, how do you say this? Ugaritic or Canaanite texts. There's no clear evidence in extent. Ugaritic texts of someone being turned into, of course, salt. The cities. Okay, so what does it say then? Salt being a symbol. So apparently salt is a symbol of this, of desolation. Salt is a symbol of destruction in the ancient world. Even in direct transformation into salt isn't common. Salt itself had symbolic uses. Salting the earth.
Even now when they do Ouija board stuff, it's the same situation.
A practice in the ancient Near East and Roman.
Like the salt, you can use the salt in
world where conquerors would spread salt.
Guys, I'm just losing my thought. I'm sorry,
on a destroyed city to curse it and prevent regrowth.
That's what I was trying to say. They use salt now for protection when they have seances. They put a circle of salt around it for protection. Guys, I don't know why I'm losing my train of thought today. I'm not concentrating.
Wow, that's kind of interesting.
Is,
so there's a lot more meaning to this concept of salt. Example, after Carthage was destroyed by Rome, legend says it was salted. A symbolic use of salt. So you can see there are some more interesting concepts that relate to it. But then I went over to Google AI and asked it a very similar question. Are there any ancient stories of humans, giants, or gods being turned, of course, into rock? Yes, numerous ancient stories exist in which humans, giants, and even gods are turned into stone or rock as a form of punishment. These myths typically serve to warn against hubris, excessive pride, disobedience, and vanity. Niobe, the weeping rock. The story of Niobe was the queen of Thebes and had 14 children. She boasted that she was superior to the goddess Leto, who had only 2 children, the twins Apollo and Artemis. The judgment.
I'm not big on salt anyway. I don't put salt on meals.
Niobe's arrogance. By Niobe's arrogance, Leto sent Apollo.
I do like black pepper, but I don't like salt.
And Artemis to basically take out her family. And she was, of course, grieving and fled to her homeland out of pity. Zeus transformed her into a weeping rock of Mount Sipylus. Water is said to continuously seep from the porous stone, symbolizing her eternal tears. So there is a lot of stories, ancient legends like this, even in the Philippines. My wife is from the Philippines. They have stories of certain islands being where the giants were, and they believe that they turned, of course, into stone. So this is very common in the ancient times, that this is how they thought. This is the stories. These are the legends surrounding these ancient gods, beings, whatever you want to call them, small g gods. Medusa, the petrifying gaze. The story of Medusa was a beautiful maiden who was punished by the goddess Athena for being violated, of course, by Poseidon in Athena's temple. The judgment of Medusa's curse, though the result of punishment meant for her, became a method of judgment for others. The hero Perseus ultimately took her out, but used her head as a weapon, apparently, on his enemies. Yeah, okay, it's to petrify his enemies. So you got Atlas, the Titan, made a mountain. The story, Atlas was a Titan who fought against Zeus and the Olympian gods. As punishment for his role in the war, Zeus condemned Atlas to hold up the sky on his shoulders for eternity. The judgment later, the hero. So this is interesting. The hero Perseus encountered Atlas while on his journey. According to Ovid's version of the story, Atlas denied Perseus shelter. Perseus showed him the head of Medusa, turning him Titan into a giant stone mountain range that still bears his name. So this Titan was turned into apparently a mountain. And so you got lots of stories. Petrified ship, Homer's Odyssey, the Phoenicians, so I said, helped hero Odysseus return home to Ithaca, incurring the wrath of the sea god Poseidon, who hates Odysseus. Judgment, the Phoenician ship returned from its voyage. Poseidon, in his fury, turned it into a stone with a single blow of his hand, leaving it rooted at the bottom of the sea. Now, it's interesting regarding some of these ancient beings, these gods.
Or Darren, I could just stop smoking. That'd be easier. But I like my smoke.
If you can connect it with some of these ancient pseudepigraphical texts, like the Sibylline oracles, which was used by the early church, and it talks about these Greek gods as being actual beings, and said they were real beings. They weren't just myths. This is what the Sibylline oracles said, and of course, obviously, these writings like Homer's Odyssey say that as well. Of course, modern day people say they're myths, right? And it's been separated and distinguished from other texts so that you just assume, well, yeah, of course, it's just a myth. So it's interesting. You have also petrified trolls in Scandinavian folklore. Trolls, monstrous beings depicted as giants. They are generally dim-witted, afraid of sunlight. Many tales of trolls caught in the open. When the sun rises, it turns to stone. This sounds kind of like Dracula. So you have numerous stories that meet this sort of thought and criteria to actually bolster this concept of perhaps this rock.
If it was me, Shawnee, your ears would bleed.
Or this salt rock could be related. And the fact it looks like, meat makes it even more curious.
We have just found what is known to be the biblical trees that existed before the Great Flood. And these are the...
Kay took her to the vet on Monday. She's on medication. We can do nothing more about it. It makes her excited. But she calms down when the sun goes down.
trees that God intended to cut it down so that the giants don't use the tree in order to escape the great Noah's flood. Now take a look.
Interesting, because these trees are petrified. Perhaps they were trying to climb them when they're being cut. And they were also turned into, of course, rock. Something to think about. Very curious. Of course, I've talked about this some years ago. This particular tower here that has a very similar structure inside it to what you would see with trees.
Okay, if they chop that tree down like they're implying, they must have had some sort of steel smelting plant to make the blade.
Again, you have...
Which means I wonder what the engineering is they know.
Rocks that look like meat. You have trees that are other towers that look like trees. Ironically, it's called the Devil's, Tower. Now, interestingly, I saw this other video about the world's tallest tree. This is from the 1800s. Obviously not as big as that tower, but it's interesting what they had to say in this video.
Check this out, the Grinnell Creek Giant. If this tree were still standing today, it would be the largest on Earth. But it was cut down in 1926, along with most of this forest. This forest is just 4% of what was here 200 years ago. And
so they cut down 96% of this forest, these giant, massive trees. And now we have far smaller trees today. Could these trees, some of these very, very massive trees that were cut down, be extremely ancient and perhaps be from an old world where there was much greater pressure, particularly atmospheric pressure, to where this would explain how the dinosaurs were able to get as large as they were? Because today, scientists say that dinosaurs could not easily live in our modern world because there would be not enough pressure for them to pump this blood throughout their body and things of that, and to get it oxidized. How did they get so giant? How did these trees back in these ancient trees get more giant than the current ones? Maybe it's because the atmospheric pressure, or there were other things that were different in the ancient past. This would explain also how other creatures like alligators were larger. We see some of these archaeological finds of larger, of course, humans as well. I think also there's a factor of genetics. If they did mate, with something that wasn't human and there was no growth inhibitor, perhaps they just continued to grow, kind of like Andre the Giant would continue to grow because he had a genetic defect in his body. This is kind of my thoughts on it.
I saw Andre the Giant wrestle at Flemington in Sydney back when I was in high school. He was huge, as his name suggests. He was huge.
I thought that this was an interesting topic, though. I just kind of touched it a little bit. I think you look at some of these things, it's so weird. Now, I've seen a number of videos where they try to find, some rock or mountain that looks like a giraffe or like an elephant or something. But I'm just thinking to myself, well, that could just be some weird formation. Just like when you see the clouds and it looks like something up in the clouds, right? But then when you see something like this, where you see the actual structure of this mountain, the rocks itself have similar fibrous structures like you would see in an actual tree. Or if you look at this Himalayan salt and you see it literally looks like a piece of pork.
No way, grandfather saw him. I do know there was giants around Niagara Falls when Abraham Lincoln was in power, because he mentions the giants from Niagara Falls. They're probably on the Canadian side with no visa to get in.
Like, what in the world? I mean, it's a little too coincidental at that point, right? This is the actual rock. This is a rock, and it looks more like a piece of pork than the actual piece of pork. Like, bro, that's pretty crazy. right? I guess you could say it's just a weird coincidence that it looks exactly like a piece of pork. Just a weird coincidence. But of course, it's made 95%, whatever, salt. Again, it comes back to those ancient stories of beings turned into, of course, rock, but it still maintains the same structure while it's rock, while it's salt. That's interesting. You see what I mean? At any rate, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.
That's quick. I thought you had more.
UNSW is advancing equal opportunities and expanding access to education for underrepresented groups. Progress for all.
The estate we all grew up on had been in our family for hundreds of years. But now...
No, that was over. Okay.
Huge tumor-like things coming out of deer, and it's not just animals are mutating, whether it's New York, whether it's Colorado, lots of places in America, but the news is telling one part of the story, but we're going to be telling you some of the other parts of the story that I received. As you can see right here on Daily Mail, these big, huge tumor-like things coming out of deer, and it's not just deer, from rabbits to squirrels, and this is something that a lot of people are concerned with, and I've heard information that is going to tell you a little bit deeper into the story here. We've also created a map where you can see in a few where this is all going. Rabbits with horns in Colorado from Associated Press called Frankenstein bunnies here. And you can see right here on screen as we speak, there is a eyewitness account, them seeing one of these things. And you can see the horn-looking features coming out of his head. Now, how much is this concerning you in the chat, and how much more do you need to know? And that's what I'm going to get to you, because if you look at this right here, these are the reported tentacle rabbit sightings. And notice that straight line there from Colorado, Nebraska, Minnesota. We're going to give you more information. We also know from research how this came to be and what is the infection situation if it happens to touch you. Do they expect it to spread to humans? Well, that's what the inside information will tell us here in a second. But let's read this. Sightings of rabbits with unusual tentacle-like growths caused by cottontail or CRPV have been reported in 3 states, Colorado, Minnesota, and Nebraska. We got to look a little deeper here because we need to know a little bit more about this. Where does it come from? Oh, it's transmitted by biting insects and can lead to growth resembling tentacles or horns. So our next question here is, what insects, based on this confirmed information, can cause this to happen? And when we go into it, let's look right here. It happens to be, ticks, arthropods, mosquitoes. And it's also a DNA virus. This is confirmed source information here. And that's what makes it more interesting now that we're going to dive a little bit deeper here into this situation, because if it's ticks, well, there's one thing I know about the ticks, and we're going to get to the map here where this situation is happening. They was calling it out that some rare tick deadly disease was found in Maine. This was earlier in the year. We just want to bring this up here into the story. Researchers said they found rabbit ticks in Maine carrying a new type of bacteria that can cause spotted fever. So this isn't the actual one we're looking at here, but let's look right up there at Maine. What's closer to Maine? Well, there was a lab that opened up as well. We're going to get to this lab that's right next to Maine in New York on Long Island. But if we look right here on screen, over the last 2 months, people have photographed deformed deer in New York, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So if you look right here on screen, there's another photo somebody posted of a deer that was walking around. And it's not just them, it's the squirrels as well. So the USDA also came out and they were talking about fighting this New World screwworm. So if mosquitoes are the source, if ticks are the source, and arthropods are the source, now we got to dive a little bit deeper here before we get into all the information that the inside source, who's basically a cop who knows somebody in CDC and gave me an actual flyer of what they're looking at to show you more about the situation.
Dad, I'm sick.
UpDoc makes healthcare seriously accessible. It's the platform that connects you to an experienced doctor within the hour.
So this lab here, let's go into this lab in Long Island. So this is next to all the zones that we're talking about. That New York, Pennsylvania zone is right next to all that. I mean, do you think this is a coincidence here? That lab is right there next to some of the areas, as we showed you on the map, the other states that are being affected right now. Now, I want to give you this information because in my viewpoint of all this part of the video is my opinion here. If we were to have something happen, our wildlife won't be the same wildlife, so you wouldn't be able to rely on resources of wildlife. You get what I'm saying? Is this a potential setup for something much bigger? Because we've seen a lot of the drills that's happening, from earthquake drills to New Madrid, just August 6th, the National Guard. Then the Navy also conducted its own drill that you didn't hear about, with more earthquake response, natural disasters. And they're getting $400 million allocated to prepare North Carolina drinking water for natural disasters. So whatever this natural disaster is, maybe they know a little something here, and it seems that they're preparing in any way they can. Now, I want to get to the source here who just today got with me about this. One was like, yeah, you need to talk about this. Now, okay, I'm going to read y'all what he says, but I want you to see on screen first what he sent to me. I said, if he gets official info, let me know. Clear on that, buddy. I'm trying to see if he can give me any more.
Guys, I'm out after this as well. It's got 5 minutes left.
Or documents, because he's currently at work, and he works for the CDC. And he sent this flyer to us right here. This was just today. Zombie deer, zombie squirrels, and tentacle rabbits. Recently, reports of zombie deer and zombie squirrels, as well as tentacle rabbits, have emerged. Erratic behavior, signs and symptoms, bloody or oozing wounds, decayed or discolored flesh, tentacles extending from the head or body for tentacle rabbits. Stick around, I'm going to tell you what he said they believe is happening here.
Darren, have you got Facebook and Messenger?
It is transmitted, but it is suspected to be zoonotic. Prevention. Avoid contact with infected animals. Report any sightings to local health authorities. For more information, visit www.cdc.gov. Now, that was what was in the folder of the CDC. This hasn't even been released yet. I looked across a couple websites to see if this was released. There was no files or folders or anything. So this guy got this from the CDC server inside of the actual office. Now, subscribe right now if you don't understand what's going on, because we're covering all the details, making sure you get all the information. Now, here's the other part. Now, I'm going to try to word this to it. He said, I just wanted to check in with you to see how you were doing and kind of share you a little information, you know. He said that basically what they've been seeing, they're telling the sources inside are telling him this was an infection that accidentally.
I was never here. You know that big food crisis in Palestine? You know who's stopping the food trucks? The United Nations. They're getting sent, but the United Nations is confiscating them. All the jihadists are, and they're selling the food.
You know, basically accidentally got out. And of a LAB, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I can't say it all. And it's almost like from the TV show, unfortunately, Last of Us. What insiders are describing this as it's spreading fast, and the fear is it's going to spread to other animals like fish, cows, and possibly humans.
Okay, you can download Messenger without Facebook. I did not know that. Can you send me a request, please? I'd like to talk to you about some things.
Yes, that was sent in the text. This is potentially what they are looking at as we speak right now. That was the information that highly is important. I do believe that this could be aligned with some of the events that we're seeing already. whether it's an earthquake, whether it's a volcano or something happen?
I got thrown off Facebook 3 times, and they don't let you open another account with that IP address. So I got gave to hers because she used her daughter's Wi-Fi instead. But yeah, I can't open an account on Wi-Fi in my name.
Under the natural disaster, these situations look like it's almost being leveraged in my eyes, but it could be that officially they have not come out and understood another source.
Good night, Phil. God bless, mate.
Situation here, and I put out a huge video of volcano collapse opens underwater off West Coast. Highly important. I'm going to have that video on the left-hand side. You got to click that to see the deeper side of the natural disaster plans. I think ties in heavily with this. And the JWTV ebook, Bioshield Protocol, where the parasitic situations happen in educational. The last 8 years, I researched a lot of this because I went through Hurricane Katrina. So since we're going through this now, I understand how this parasitic infection stuff works. And I think it will help you out a lot in these scenarios. So what is the bigger side of the story?
Doesn't the Bible say the animals turn on us during tribulation? Pretty sure it does.
That brings us down into understanding a little bit more about this situation. So the ticks that's at the lab in New York, Long Island, you got to understand that this was one of the areas that was used during World War II, where the top scientists from Operation Paperclip came there, but now they're at Kansas. So let's look at one thing really quick here. How close are they to Kansas is the big question, because that's going to be the research facility where they bring out all the animal zoonotic researchers. And that's where it's going to start having this uptick in, we need to do some different protocols here. I think that over the course of time, we are going to see this play out, and I'm going to get more information on how exactly it plays out. So stay away from the ticks and the fleas. And my big thing that I use for ticks and fleas, I also got it in my ebook. But right away, I took colloidal silver my own self, which like seconds, because like the problem is like people will wait for hours and stuff. You first minutes, first seconds, drip, bam, drip. I'm already, I'm not playing with them. I already know we're in biological territories with these ticks. And the thing is, like, you can't wait. You got to go ahead and get on top of all that. So I'm going to be looking at all this stuff in these situations as it transpires for the people just tuning in. They don't know what's going on. We've been covering all the details here about all the different animals and what's going on, how this is starting to transpire. During these moments, you probably have to think about it. All right, well, will I be able to fish? Because you might not be able to go and get a rabbit. You might not be able to go and get a deer. And this could be really something heavily they could be focused on. If you think that's a fact, if you think that's true, we'll find out. We'll get more information on that over time. But don't let them hide this video from you that I put out just the other day. Watch now, volcano collapse, and we got the live feed footage under the ocean about what's happening. And you can click right here, you'll see it, and it'll also be in the live chat after it's over.
I'm going to do the oceans and volcanoes and earthquakes tomorrow after you watch Mike from Around the World, because he knows what's going on. It's good to keep up.
That's into the story.
I'm Roger Fletcher, principal of Fletcher National. On the farm, we end up with quite a lot of the time.
Couple of weeks when I got.
Okay, hang on. Where was it? Hang on. Hang on, guys. Okay. Last one and then I'm out, guys.
Hot rock off the East Coast into New England is now being observed on a higher level, because we've had an earthquake offshore of Maine, which is highly rare for this to happen. And there is some sleeping faults here that potentially might be waking up here. We'll look at this live map of the northern Appalachian anomaly and the central Appalachian anomaly. You can see the heat areas there. And remember, just earlier in the year, they was telling us, and not even earlier in the year, a couple months back, they talked about a giant hot blob that was headed towards New York, but is currently already in New England, which is Maine.
I have heard about this.
Which is where we're seeing this earthquake happen off of Maine coast. So we're going to look at the zones here that you need to be paying attention to, because this depth of this earthquake was 10.1 kilometers. This means it was along bedrock faults. Bedrock faults are some of the older faults that has not been talked about in Maine at all, really, because they're so old. They're
okay, guys, God bless.
But it seems that right now we're seeing more activity. If you look here on earthquaketrack.com,
it says only one watching. That's me, I think. So I'll see you tomorrow, guys. God bless.
Notice this 2.5 that hit off Vinyl Haven, Maine. There is no other earthquakes in the last month, 2 months, 3 months. And this tracks all the earthquakes all the way from weeks to months. And that's because, like I said, this is a rare occasion for this to happen. And that's why it's such a big deal. And I was going to take you guys to the array system